evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. On tonight's headlines. First, in Pakistan, where the country is battling ravaging floods, and according to National Disaster Management Authority, it had affected 30 million people. Flash floods continue to devastate the northern and southern provinces as the death toll is now nearing 1,000. And so far, there are no reports of Filipinos killed by the floods there. A ferry caught fire off a port near the Philippine capital Manila, leaving 9 people missing and 1 injured. And there is a risk of a radioactive leak at Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, currently occupied by Russian troops, according to the state energy operator. Kiev and Moscow have traded accusations over shelling in the vicinity of this complex. And later, an exclusive interview with Philippines concert king Martin Nievera, who's celebrating 4 decades in show business. MJ Racario has this exclusive report. First to Pakistan now, where the country is battling ravaging floods. And according to the National Disaster Management Authority, it had affected 30 million people. Flash floods continue to devastate the northern and southern provinces as the death toll is now nearing 1,000.
तो मैंने इसको बनाना शुरू कर दिया और मकान बना लिया तो इनके अभी तकरीबन 8 साल हो गए तो कोई भी काम नहीं हुआ इनका इन्होंने ये दीवारें लगानी थी ये मांदा बनाना था पक्का करना थी पक्की दीवारें लगानी थी और बिजली देनी थी गैस देनी थी कोई काम भी नहीं किया सिर्फ एक बिजली वो भी इनके पीछे लग के 8 साल में जो है ना बिजली मिली
Climate Change Minister Ferry, who on Wednesday called the floods a catastrophe of epic scale, said the government had declared an emergency and appealed for international assistance. Earlier this year, much of the nation was in the grip of a drought and heat wave, with temperatures hitting 51 degrees Celsius or 124 degrees Fahrenheit in Jacobabad, Sindh province. The city is now grappling with floods that have inundated homes, swept away roads and bridges. Premier Sharif canceled a planned trip to Britain to oversee the flood response, and he ordered the army to throw every resource into relief operations. Pakistan Railway said nearby Quetta, capital of Balochistan province, it had been cut off and train services suspended after a key bridge there was damaged by this flood. Now, most mobile networks and internet services were down in the province, with the country's telecoms authority calling it unprecedented. Pakistan is 8th on the Global Climate Risk Index, a list compiled by the environmental NGO German Watch of countries deemed most vulnerable to extreme weather caused by climate change. And so far, there are no reports of Filipinos killed by floods in Pakistan. That is according to the Department of Foreign Affairs. DFA Undersecretary for Migrant Workers Affairs, Eduardo Jose de Vega, said the Philippine Embassy in Islamabad has reported to him that the Filipino community in Pakistan is safe. There are currently 3,000 Filipinos in Pakistan, and most of them live in Islamabad and Karachi. The hardest hit by the flood are south of Pakistan, particularly Sindh and Balochistan provinces, which received 8 times its average August rainfall. Around 90% of the Filipinos in Pakistan are household service workers, while the rest are professionals or staff of international organizations. The Pakistan government just declared a national emergency, and it is appealing for international help. A ferry caught fire off a port near the Philippine capital Manila, leaving 9 people missing and 1 injured. Now, emergency services rescued 73 of the 82 people who had been on board the MV Asia Philippines as it burned near the port of Batangas. They included a middle-aged woman who was taken to hospital with an unspecified injury. 9 other people still missing. 2 Coast Guard search and rescue vessels were still looking for the missing, and they are trying to put out the blaze as of early evening, hours after the ferry caught fire about and 1 nautical mile from shore. The cause of the fire wasn't immediately known. The ship had sailed from the port of Calapan on nearby Mindoro Island in mid-afternoon with 48 passengers, 34 crew members, and 16 motor vehicles on board. The vessel is authorized to carry 402 passengers. Search and rescue operations are continuing. Meanwhile, images from China's state broadcaster shows firefighters battling wildfires in mountains in the Chongqing municipality as the crippling drought exacerbated by a record heat wave spreads across half of the country.
我们朋友2个一起就到这边，火塘那个记不清楚，因为不停地在拉，不停地在送人，从凌晨4点到现在。
Now, volunteers are seen packing supplies, driving motorcycles to assist the firefighters. A crippling drought exacerbated by a record heat wave has spread across half of China and reached the normally frigid Tibetan Plateau. According to CGTN News, cloud seeding operations are being carried out across the country to quench the land suffering from drought. In southwest China's Chongqing municipality and the provinces of Sichuan and Guizhou, unmanned aerial vehicles conducted cloud seeding operations in the sky, and workers on the ground shot cloud seeding rods in an effort to create artificial rainfall. Experts have said the intensity, scope, and duration of the heat wave could make it one of the worst recorded in global history. The worst affected area, the Yangtze River Basin, stretching from coastal Shanghai to Sichuan province in China's southwest, is home to over 370 million people. It contains several manufacturing hubs, including the megacity of Chongqing. China's State Council announced a 10 billion yuan subsidy to support rice farmers experiencing drought conditions, which authorities have warned pose a severe threat to this year's autumn harvest. China produces more than 95% of the rice, wheat, and maize it consumes. But a reduced harvest could mean increased demand for imports in the world's most populous country, putting further pressure on global supplies already strained by the conflict in Ukraine. The 1,450-mile-long Colorado River provides water and electricity to about 40 million people in Arizona, California, Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Utah. Now, the country's sixth largest river also irrigates 4 to 5 million acres of farmland in the Southwest. However, a prolonged 22-year drought has taken its toll on the mighty river. The western U.S. is suffering under a drought that is now in its 23rd year, the worst episode in more than 1,000 years. Our correspondent from Las Vegas, Anna Cui, reports.
7 U.S. western states failed to come up with a plan by mid-August to reduce their annual water use of the Colorado River by 2 to 4 million acre-feet next year, prompting the federal government to issue cuts that will affect Nevada, Arizona, and Mexico. The Tier 2 water reduction will decrease Nevada's water share by 8%, Arizona's by 21%, and Mexico's by 7% in 2023. This comes as the Bureau releases its August 2022 24-month study report showing water level projections at Lake Mead and Lake Powell. Lake Mead, about 34 miles from the Las Vegas Strip, is where southern Nevada gets 90% of its water supply. And according to the Southern Nevada Water Authority, or SNWA, Lake Mead's elevation has fallen about 170 feet since 2000 and more than 24 feet so far this year, dropping the lake's capacity to about 27% due to the extreme drought conditions. While a Tier 2 water shortage requires southern Nevada to forego 24,000 of its 300,000 acre-foot allocation from Lake Mead, SNWA says it won't have customer impacts in the short term. It says water used last year was 242,000 acre-feet, which is well below the shortage threshold, and credits the community's comprehensive water conservation measures over the last 2 decades. This includes recycling nearly all of its indoor water use and actually returning that to Lake Mead, and also enforcing mandatory seasonal water restrictions. These, along with other measures, have reduced the community's water consumption from Lake Mead by 26%, even with the addition of more than 750,000 residents between 2002 and 2021. But still, with these new additional reductions, SNWA says Southern Nevada will have to redouble their conservation efforts and is considering additional measures, including a ban on new man-made lakes and fountains and additional restrictions on golf courses, just to name a few. Anna Cui, Las Vegas, Nevada, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Further indications have emerged that life-threatening drought in the Horn of Africa will likely continue for a fifth year and impact millions of people, according to the UN World Meteorological Organization. And this warning came after a long-range forecast for October to December issued at the Greater Horn of Africa Seasonal Climate Outlook Forum indicated high chances of drier than average conditions across most of parts of the region. Take a look.
The World Meteorological Organization said parts of the Greater Horn of Africa, which are already experiencing drought, are bracing for a fifth consecutive failed rainy season. Clearly, all this will worsen with the crisis, which is impacting millions of men, women, and children in the area. The forecast for October to December of this year shows high chances of drier than average conditions across most parts of the region, particularly in the drought-impacted areas of Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia, which are expected to receive significantly below rainfall totals through the end of the year.
Now, the four straight failed rainy seasons so far have killed millions of livestock, destroyed crops, and forced 1.1 million people from their homes in search of food and water. The WHO said acting now means we can save millions of lives in Djibouti, Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, and Uganda. More than 7.3 million people are in an emergency state, facing extreme food shortages, and the risk of hunger-related death is rapidly increasing. The UN's World Food Program said last week the number of people at risk of starvation in the drought-ravaged region has increased to 22 million. Meanwhile, UN member states ended 2 weeks of negotiations without a treaty to protect biodiversity in the high seas, an agreement that would have addressed growing environmental and economic challenges. Many had hoped the session, which began on August 15 at the UN headquarters in New York, would be the last and yield a final text on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, or BBNJ for short. One of the most sensitive issues in the text revolved around the sharing of possible profits from the development of genetic resources in international waters, where pharmaceutical, chemical, and cosmetic companies hope to find miracle drugs, products, or cures. Such costly research at sea is largely the prerogative of rich nations, but developing countries don't want to be left out of potential windfall profits drawn from marine resources that belong to no one. The high seas begin at the border of a nation's exclusive economic zone, which by international law reaches no more than 200 nautical miles from its coast and are under no state's jurisdiction. 60% of the world's oceans fall under this category. And while healthy marine ecosystems are crucial to the future of humanity, particularly to limit global warming, only 1% of international waters are protected. One of the key pillars of an eventual BBNJ treaty is to allow the creation of marine protected areas, which many nations hope will cover 30% of the Earth's ocean by 2030. In tonight's other news, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the world narrowly avoided a radiation disaster as electricity to Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant was cut for hours due to Russian shelling in the area, allegations that Moscow denies. Take a look.
Хочу підкреслити, що ситуація залишається дуже ризикованою, небезпечною. Будь-яке повторення вчорашніх подій, тобто будь-яке відключення станції від мережі, будь-які дії Росії, які можуть спровокувати відключення реакторів, знов поставлять станцію за крок від катастрофи.
In that evening address, Zelensky reiterated demands that the International Atomic Energy Agency be allowed to visit the plant as soon as possible. Authorities began distributing iodine tablets to residents near Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant on Friday in case of a radiation leak, amid mounting fears that the fighting around the complex could trigger a catastrophe. And this move came a day after the plant was temporarily knocked offline because of what officials said was fire damage to a transmission line. This incident heightened dread of a nuclear disaster in a country still haunted by the 1986 explosion at Chernobyl. And there is a risk of a radioactive leak at Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, currently occupied by Russian troops. That, according to the state energy operator. Energoatom said Moscow's troops had repeatedly shelled the plant site over the past day. The nuclear agency said on Telegram, quote, as a result of periodic shelling, the infrastructure of the station has been damaged. There are risks of hydrogen leakage and sputtering of radioactive substances, and the fire hazard is high. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg stresses the need to beef up security along the alliance's northern flank to counter Russia as he wraps up a visit to Canada that included a tour of its Arctic defenses. Take a look.
Russia has set up a new Arctic command. It has opened hundreds of new and former Soviet-era Arctic military sites, including airfields and deep water ports. Russia is also using the region as a testbed for many of its new novel weapon systems. Beijing and Moscow have also pledged to intensify practical cooperation in the Arctic. This forms part of the deepening strategic partnership that challenge our values and our interests.
It is important that we all recognize the shifting geopolitical realities that the world is now facing, and across the NATO alliance, countries are investing more in ability to secure NATO territory, including across the Arctic. Certainly recognize that after decades of unprecedented peace, Russia's decision to invade Ukraine is requiring us all to step up even more on defense spending.
Prime Minister Trudeau said Canada, which currently falls short on NATO spending targets, will soon be replacing its aging fighter jet fleet and modernizing its continental defenses in partnership with the U.S. Ottawa has earmarked billions of dollars for new satellites and undersea sensors in the Arctic and the replacement of an aging network of radar stations from Alaska to Quebec. The deadly wave that killed about 300 tons of fish seems to have passed over the Oder River in Poland. But scientists and local entrepreneurs fear the long-term consequences of the ecological disaster. In the Zielona Góra region, known for its vineyards, tourism has already fallen drastically, and professionals in the sector fear for their survival.
Czyli mamy tutaj martwe ryby, mamy tutaj martwe małże, czyli te organizmy, które, mówię o małżach, są tak zwanymi filtratorami. I teraz jeśli okaże się, że wszystkie te organizmy zostały wyeliminowane z ekosystemu, to skutki tej katastrofy mogą być naprawdę wieloletnie.
Sama rzeka właściwie stała się dla nas w pewnym momencie martwa, bo wyłączono z użytkowania. To jest dla takiego samorządu jak nasz wielki problem.
Znając podejście niestety polskiej władzy do ekologii, do natury, do przyrody, można było się tego spodziewać. Tak naprawdę Odra to była tykająca taka bomba zegarowa, ponieważ dobrze wiedzieliśmy, że wiele zakładów przemysłowych na Śląsku spuszcza bezpośrednio ścieki.
In the empty tourist marina of Sigasice in Poland, firefighters in a rubber dinghy are still removing dead fish while environmental agency workers take water samples for tests. The stench of dead fish fills the air. Between 200 and 300 kilograms of dead fish have been removed in Sigasice in the past few days, out of around 300 tons in total from the water since the start of August. While the first signs of pollution appeared at the end of July, the area around Sigasice was only affected on August 8. Thousands of dead fish began appearing in the water in the region as a whole, and residents and firefighters rushed to their river in an effort to clean it up. Poland's government only reacted on August 12, sparking widespread criticism from both local and Polish authorities and Germany. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Running a business is part and parcel of our daily lives, mula sa sari-sari store ng kapitbahay, sa motor supply shop sa kanto, sa mga nagtitinda ng masasarap na pagkain at marami pang iba. They are called micro, small, and medium enterprises, the backbone of many economies. Today, let us attempt to have a closer look on the path to digitization and digitalization of MSMEs, and let's learn on how it can flourish businesses with our guest, Arlene Martinez, the founding president of Asia Council for Small Business Philippine Chapter.
When you open up and embrace digital technology and you become present online, ang pinaka-advantage po niyan is that hindi mo nilalagyan ng cap ang growth or revenue growth mo. Your potential to grow is not just 10-folds, 100-folds, but it can be 1,000-folds.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
In the UK, a deepening cost of fuel crisis, and it's about to get worse. Millions of people are expected to pay about 80% more a year on their household energy bills starting October. Ofgem has just announced a new price cap that will go up to £3,549 or $4,197 per year from the current £1,971. National Energy Action predicts that it'll put 8.2 million people in fuel poverty by October. Our correspondent from the United Kingdom, Love and Season, reports from London.
Britain announced Friday a vast 80% hike in electricity and gas bills in a dramatic worsening of the cost of living crisis before winter as the UK awaits a new leader. Regulator Ofgem said its energy price cap, which sets prices for consumers who are not on a fixed deal, with their supplier will in October increase to an average £3,549 or $4,197 per year from the current $1,971, blaming soaring wholesale gas costs after Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Because the energy price cap rise, which has risen to over £3,500, is intolerable for working people, for people in poverty, for people out of work in Britain right now. I'm here because our parliamentary political parties have failed us, continue to fail us, whether Labour or Conservative. They offer no solution to the people already in poverty and in worse situations, and to the people who will be put into poverty come October when this price cap rise comes into effect.
The increase in the cap reflects the continued rise in global wholesale gas prices, which began to surge as the world unlocked from the COVID pandemic and have been driven still higher to record levels by Russia slowly switching off gas supplies to Europe. Ofgem said in a statement. The near doubling in the cap will likely tip millions into fuel poverty, forced to choose between heating or eating, according to anti-poverty experts.
And we are very concerned that at the level that is forecasted for January, more than half of the UK households could be in fuel poverty. We are calling the government to increase its support in order to get through this winter. And we are also calling the government to think about enduring solutions, especially in the area of energy efficiency, in order to reduce very significantly the level of consumption of our customers. The situation is catastrophic in the UK as it reflects the fact that Russia has weaponized gas, and the price of gas on the wholesale market has increased dramatically, which has an impact also on the price of electricity, as electricity in the UK is in majority generated thanks to burning gas. We can see that the customers are already under stress. So we have seen an increase of 30% of the level of customer calling our advisors to find solutions when they are struggling to pay for their bills.
Yeah, a couple of years ago I spent £25 a month. It moved over the time, up until about a year ago, it moved to, I was shocked I was paying 45, which was actually not twice as much, but getting higher. And then recently it moved to, I used 65 one month, which compared to 25 is more than twice as much. So my bills have more than doubled, really.
Britain is already suffering from its highest inflation rate since 1982 and is predicted to enter recession later this year. Britain's rampant cost of living has dominated the race to succeed Conservative Prime Minister Boris Johnson, with political opponents accusing him of leading a zombie government as inflation escalates. Both frontrunner Liz Truss and rival leadership contender Rishi Sunak are grappling with how to address the crisis.
None of it's good. To be honest, Liz Truss, tax cuts, ridiculous. Rishi Sunak, sticking plasters. Keep giving handouts. You can't keep giving handouts. You need to change the system.
Gas comprises a major part of Britain's energy mix, with tens of millions of homes relying on gas-powered boilers for their heating. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, this is Love and Season. We live in extraordinary times.
In other news, reviving the micro, small, and medium enterprises in the country is one of the administration's top priorities. According to President Marcos made the assurance during the MSME Summit 2022 at the Manila Hotel in the city of Manila. Take a look.
Our MSMEs form part of the backbone of our economy, generating more than half of our employment. And this is why it is fully recognized that this sector's critical role in our country's economic regeneration, job creation, and poverty reduction is critical. As your president, I assure you that the revitalization of our MSMEs is among the administration's top priorities. I reiterate the government's full commitment to work hand in hand with all stakeholders to make certain that MSMEs are protected and provided with ample opportunities, not only to recover from these extraordinary times, but to grow and thrive in this modern age. I commend, of course, Go Negosyo, the Department of Trade and Industry, and the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines, and all the other partners behind the success of this event. I know that it will be an avenue for the government and private sector to find ways to work together, ensuring and enabling a sound environment for the recovery of our MSMEs. I am pleased that the focus of the MSME Summit, our post-pandemic recovery and the promotion of digitalization are aligned with the priorities of the administration, for we have a common view of our shared future.
To the U.S. now, where Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell spoke today on inflation and interest rate hikes during a key economic conference in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. The much-anticipated speech comes ahead of next month's Fed meeting on a possible rate hike. He admitted that taking steps to reduce inflation will cause some economic pain. He also acknowledged that while prices did go down in July, we're not out of the woods yet, he said.
While the lower inflation readings for July are certainly welcome, a single month's improvement falls far short of what the committee will need to see before we are confident that inflation is moving down. Reducing inflation is likely to require a sustained period of below-trend growth. Moreover, there will very likely be some softening of labor market conditions. While higher interest rates, slower growth, and softer labor market conditions will bring down inflation, they will also bring some pain to households and businesses. These are the unfortunate costs of reducing inflation. But a failure to restore price stability would mean far greater pain. Without price stability, the economy does not work for anyone. In particular, without price stability, we will not achieve a sustained period of strong labor market conditions that benefit all. The burdens of high inflation fall heaviest on those who are least able to bear them. Restoring price stability will take some time and requires using our tools forcefully to bring demand and supply into better balance.
In the battle to contain red-hot U.S. inflation, which topped 9% in June, the Fed has increased rates 4 times, including 3/4 point increases in June and July. Steep moves unheard of since the early 1980s to the current level of a range of 2.25 to 2.5%. And the move is meant to slow the economy and squelch inflation. The uncertainty fueling a sell-off in Wall Street, the Dow down more than 1,000 points as consumers wonder what is next. Powell repeated Friday that another unusually large 75 basis point hike could be appropriate at the September policy meeting. Staying in the U.S., the heavily redacted copy of the FBI's Mar-a-Lago search affidavit made public yesterday describing the what's but not who's surrounding classified materials that were removed from the White House and taken to President Trump's Florida estate. Take a look. Now, according to the affidavit, the FBI opened the investigation after the National Archives and Records Administration received 15 boxes of records in January 2022 that had been improperly removed from the White House and taken to Mar-a-Lago. It said sensitive national defense information was among the records recovered, including 67 documents marked as confidential, 92 as secret, and 25 as top secret. Among the documents was intelligence information received from clandestine human sources, a classification which can include spies and informants and is among the most tightly held of government secrets. Former President Trump, who is weighing another White House run in 2024, accused the Justice Department under Democratic President Joe Biden of conducting a witch hunt and said the judge should never have allowed the break-in of his home. The search warrant, which was personally approved by Attorney General Merrick Garland, authorized the FBI to search the 45 office, a reference to the 45th U.S. President's private office at Mar-a-Lago and storage rooms. It said the probe was related to willful retention of national defense information, an offense that falls under the Espionage Act, and potential obstruction of a federal investigation. In other news, nearly 1,000 people demonstrated in Mexico City to demand that officials involved in the 2014 disappearance of 43 students from the Ayotzinapa Teacher Training College be punished.
Creo que es un principio, digo, es una esperanza que se tiene para poder llegar a los culpables. Digo que, como dice, es un funcionario de alto nivel, pero al final sabemos quién era entonces el jefe supremo de las Fuerzas Armadas, que en este caso era Peña Nieto, y queremos ver a Peña Nieto en prisión.
A Mexican judge ordered a former attorney general, to stand trial in the case of 43 students whose murky disappearance in 2014 traumatized the nation. Jesus Murillo Caram will be tried on charges of forced disappearance, torture, and obstruction of justice. He's considered to be the architect of the so-called historical truth version of events presented in 2015 by the government of then-President Enrique Peña Nieto that was widely rejected, including by relatives. In other news, the Department of Finance Secretary Benjamin Diokno told the House Committee on Appropriations that it is a waste of public funds at this point to give ayuda or help to Filipinos in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic. But with regards to the non-pandemic assistance, Diokno said the government is thinking of making the national ID a requirement for the beneficiaries. Take a look.
On the giving of ayuda in relation to the crisis, I think that should already be discontinued because we have actually fully recovered, okay? And because of the limited fiscal space. But the social protection programs, the SWD, I think that should continue. The aid to senior citizens, that should continue. But the giving out of ayuda in relation to the pandemic, that is, I think, already a waste of public funds. And we are thinking along the lines of maybe limiting the beneficiaries to those who have national ID. This is to make sure that there is an incentive for citizens to get a national ID. Only those who have national ID should be entitled to this form of ayudas. Okay, and we have the PSA promise that they will produce at least 50 million national IDs by the end of this year, all imprinted and in this form. Okay, kasi malaki po ang leakage diyan sa mga ayuda na yan eh.
A Los Angeles neighborhood featured in the Fast and Furious movies held protests against the filming of the franchise's latest installment, claiming the community has been blighted by a spate of illegal and dangerous street racing. Now, the group has also asked Universal to add a disclaimer to the Fast and Furious movies discouraging street racing. The studio did not immediately respond to an AFP request for comment. The movies depict the underground world of street racing, helping to popularize practices such as street takeovers in which crowds gather, usually at night, to watch cars rev their engines and screech at high speeds around city streets. The first installment of Fast and the Furious was released by Universal Pictures in 2001, and the franchise has become the 8th highest grossing film series in history, taking over $6.6 billion worldwide across 10 movies. Fast X is due to be released next May. Now, residents are voicing their anger at this weekend's planned taping of Fast X in Angelino Heights, a historic area near downtown Los Angeles, which is home to Vin Diesel's fictional character, Dominic Toretto, in the widely popular long-running film series. Damian Kevitt, a local resident and founder of Streets Are For Everyone, or SAFE, said the Hollywood film series glorifies an illegal activity, and as a result, Angelino Heights had become a tourist destination for illegal street racing. Take a look.
So I live nearby, and I've talked with a number of residents. I've seen videos. We even had a resident just catalog the number of incidents. And it happens on a regular basis throughout the week, more commonly on the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. There'll be 3, 4, 5, 6 cars coming through here, doing burnouts, doing donuts.
What are we waiting for to have action take place? Are we waiting for this to happen right here with one of our residents, with one of our children?
And it reminds me of what my daughter must have felt when the driver was taking her home and engaging to a street race when he saw a coworker. He was driving over 80 miles an hour and ultimately crashing and killing her.
This community needs to be made safe. We are not trying to stop Hollywood, but Hollywood needs to be responsible for its actions. NBC Universal needs to be responsible for what message it's conveying.
I get it. They want to come and see Bob's Market. That was in probably Fast Furious #1 100 years ago. For a hot second, they want to come and take a picture. Okay, but it's not okay to come and drench the area with these cars that come speeding in your inner neighborhood block.
Angelino Heights has served as a protagonist, Dominic Toretto's home, and has made several areas in the neighborhood famous. Los Angeles has seen a 30% increase in fatalities and a 21% increase in serious injuries due to traffic violence over the last year, according to the Los Angeles Police Department. NBC Universal has not responded to requests for comments. Similarly, SAFE said residents have tried multiple times to reach out to Council Member Hill Cedillo to try and stop production, but have yet to get a response. And here's an exclusive interview with Philippines concert king Martin Nievera, who's celebrating 4 decades in show business. MJ Racario has this exclusive report.
Philippines concert king Martin Nievera celebrating 4 decades of entertaining and performing around the globe. History in the making as he performs at the Walt Disney Concert Hall this weekend. I had a one-on-one interview with him. Take a look.
In the industry for 4 years, can you share us your journey? Like some of the highlights of your career from the start to now in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, 40 years in a nutshell. Well, it started from a dream. My father was a singer and I wanted to be just like him. I joined singing contests, never won. And then in 1981, I won the overall grand champion in the state of California in a big competition that lasted 4 days. And I was the champion of those 4 days. We didn't have social media. We didn't have American Idol. We didn't have any of that back then. So you had to compete. And then when I won, I decided I really want to pursue my singing career. So I went to the Philippines in 1982. I had my first concert in 1983, joined television. I did a couple of movies, not so proud of that part. But television was very kind to me. It accepted me as one of their own. So I became a singer that could do talk shows, that could do variety shows, that could do a variety of things. And concerts left and right. I was one of the first ones to do this or that venue, whatever was not yet tested and tried. I was the guinea pig before from many years ago. If Martin sells well, then let's go there. Now, as we speak today, in a nutshell, I find myself making small venues feel big, making big venues feel small and intimate and personal.
For a particular song, do you have to really you have to go in through tough times, or you have to be happy, or do you have to act like you're in that particular moments of that song? Share us.
Well, it depends on the song. If it's a ballad, I really have to put myself in the place of, I have to really go over that song especially Tagalog. When someone translates to me
Yes.
the lyrics in English and what they want me to say in Tagalog, I become even more immersed into the song because I want to be able to tell the story correctly. And in Tagalog, there's so many, maraming ibig sabihin, diba? All the different lines, different ways of saying, I love you, I want you, I miss you. Those are the songs that I've been elected to sing, the love songs, the I want you back songs. I've experienced all of that in my life. But some composers wrote songs that were close to their hearts that they want me to sing the way they felt it. That's the hard part. I'm a balladeer. So, and most Filipinos are balladeers. You karaoke kings out there and queens, you know who you are. They love to sing the songs.
Having said that, Martin, your particular song, Ikaw Ang Lahat Sa Akin, what were you going through at that time?
Wow, good choice. I fell in love with a girl for the first time. I mean, first time in the Philippines. My first thing I ever did, fall in love. Hello. And I was in San Mateo, California, in the house of Louis Heredia. You know Louis Heredia? He was friends with a composer named Cecil Acercon. And she and I spoke on the phone, and she says, I'm following your career, you're having a good start. And then she said, I'd like to write you a song. I said, well, I just wrote a song. She goes, tell me about the song. Well, she's everything to me, you know, and my life is not the same unless I'm with her, blah, blah, blah. So she made it in Tagalog, and it became my very first Tagalog song. What's my next thing that people don't know? A fun fact about me?
One more.
I love dogs. I mean, I will go onto a park, dogless, and just own everyone else's dog. Hug them, kiss them. I've been told many times, can you please get away from my dog? Stay away from his doggy private space. Please leave right now. Because I love dogs so much. Even if it's not my dog, I'm the guy who goes, oh my God, what's that? That's me. That's one thing I'm not proud of. It's really sad that I melt. I melt like a schoolgirl to BTS. I melt.
So now, what advice for those who wants to be in the music industry?
You have to be in it for the right reasons. Yeah, I know everyone has a different story. My story was my dream, and I'm living the dream. That's why my job, I love my job even to this day. Not one boring moment. I never once said, why do I have to keep doing this? No, I love it. That's me. But for some of you out there who think that being in becoming a singer or an artista, a host, or whatever it is, it's not. If you're in it for the money, for that immediate fame and fortune, those are the wrong reasons for you to be in this business. Some of us have it, some of us don't have it. I'm very lucky. When I started 40 years ago, zero talent. I didn't make it because of talent. I made it because I was living my dream. I was one of those kids who was given a day pass in a toy store and said, you can get whatever you want. You have 1 hour to shop. Get whatever you want. It's all yours. That's how I was. That's how I attacked every project, everything that came my way. Oh my God, how are you doing this? Oh my God, I get to meet these people. Oh my God, I get to sing in front of an audience. Oh my God, 45,000 people. Oh my God, 10,000 people. It was like a gift for me. But for some of you who think that it's an easy road to success, an easy road to money, as quick as you go up, you go quicker down because you cannot relax. You cannot think for 1 second. You cannot believe your great write-ups. You cannot believe that the person who gave you a standing ovation and said, you're the best. Don't believe it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it, because if you're doing it for all the right reasons, the way I have been doing it, you will enjoy your singing career forever. And others who watch will benefit from that kind of performance. Nothing worse than watching someone who thinks he's all that, and that's all he does is talk about himself, and everything's about self-worth, and oh, I've done this, I've got sold out here. These are words I try to stay away from because I want a job tomorrow. I want people to watch me again the next day and the next day. I want producers who produce me to make money, so they ask me back and ask me back, hoping that no one gets tired of this and my songs. And that's the only risk, is because I love it so much. I might be doing it too much. Too much of anything is bad. So if you're going to be in this business, do it for the right reasons. If you have the tools, the voice, that's great, but you need more desire, more humility if you want to last in this business. You can be a great singer. I can name 100 great singers who don't even have an album yet, who don't have a concert tour, who's not being interviewed by MJ. There's a lot of people who deserve that and have not reached that point in their life yet because they think that their first attempt at a concert or as a recording artist, because he or she hit gold, that's it. That's not it. There's more to the story. There's more to your journey.
That is it for entertainment news. MJ Ricardo here. Always tune in to Net 25 because we live in an extraordinary times.
Beyond King Tut goes beyond a traditional artifact display, and now it uses the power of photography and multimedia to create this time-traveling adventure of discovery in this immersive exhibit held at Washington, D.C. Jeff Sanidad is at the scene. Jeff.
Imagine 100 years ago, Howard Carter holding a candle when he poked at the wall. When someone says, "Can you see anything?" and he says, "Yes, wonderful things." What was discovered then was the only intact tomb ever discovered to this day from the ancient Egypt, containing over 5,000 of what some considered the most significant artifacts ever discovered. This is King Tut, the immersive experience, an inside look from the National Geographic Museum in Washington, D.C. In celebration of the 100th year of the legendary discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun in Egypt's Valley of the Kings, National Geographic Museum presents the immersive experience. Visitors will experience a cinematic storytelling and soaring projection imagery as they venture into the boy's king world who ruled Egypt from the age 9 to 19. Tutankhamun, or most commonly known as King Tut. Journey to the modern-day Egypt and see wonders of the ancient temples at the Karnak, to see the monuments from the Great Sphinx, trip down to Nile River, and experience the history as it comes to life as the sun rises above the pyramids of Giza, filling the sky with vivid colors. Step inside the tomb and see the legendary sarcophagus recreated using modern and state-of-the-art tools. Make your way through Tutankhamun's life to know his family, his unexplained and mysterious death, and many more by way of entering galleries starting from the discovery of King Tut's tomb. We are joined right now with the Vice President of Public Programming and National Geographic Museum Director, Catherine Kean.
For anyone that's a fan of ancient Egypt, the Beyond King Tut exhibition is an opportunity to travel back in time to pharaonic Egypt and experience one of the most famous pharaohs of all, King Tutankhamun. The young boy king is probably the most famous figure from ancient Egypt, and the discovery of his tomb was 100 years ago this November. The goal of the exhibit is to use new projection technologies to truly immerse our visitors in a subject that we know that they're very crazy about. In many ways, we want people to feel as if they've gone into a time capsule and gone back in time to a period in our shared history, which still resonates today. For National Geographic, this exhibit is an opportunity to experiment with media, images, and video from our impressive archive, and also to create CGI and animation experiences that didn't exist before about one of the most popular narratives from our history.
The exhibit is open until February 2023. Jeff Sanidad, Eagle News, Washington, D.C. We live in extraordinary times.
And as always, I'll end the day on a thoughtful note. Our ability to look back and smile at our past is proof that God's plan is to keep us moving forward. This has been Eagle News International. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay alert and stay informed because we live in extraordinary times.
Araw-araw together tayong gumigising.
Together natin inaalam ang mga balita.
Pangmalakasan ang ating power kapag tayo ay together.